Hey! We didn't just stare at each other for a few minutes wondering if it was recording when I guess maybe someone told you it was recording.
No one told me it was recording,
okay.
But the thing's moving.
The thing is moving, but it's been moving for a long time.
Now we've been talking and Dan hasn't told us to stop, so I'm going to guess.
You were playing with the sword.
I was screwing around with a sword.
Yeah. Let's talk about our brackets this week and not forget it
instead of forgetting it. Yeah, because time travel really screwed everyone up last time.
Yep.
Okay,
now,
so
we not only don't have flying cars, but apparently there was a pandemic.
Oh man, we really screwed things up.
This was
that one's on us, guys.
And I only ended up having 4 secret projects instead of 8.
Yeah,
I mean,
that pandemic was hard on everyone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But oh well.
So, you want me to go first this time?
Yeah, go first.
All right. So, for this week, we would like you to go and vote on your favorite of these 2. And this week, I actually like both of the bad story ideas. So we've gotten rid of the 2 that I was like, on, and we've gotten to ones that I legit enjoy. So I still seeded them in a way that I think is appropriate to how good a t-shirt they will make and how exciting they will be to fans. But you get to vote on number 3, which is Vikings versus Cthulhu. This one is propped up greatly by your exploration of the idea during the our discussion of it. So everyone should go listen to that if they didn't. You did an excellent job. This is one of the early bad story ideas I threw at you, and you turned it into something very cool.
I would say much more than that. This one's propped up by being the coolest heavy metal album cover.
Yeah,
like this T-shirt would be incredible.
Yeah. So this one gets a high seed for that. On the opposite end of the spectrum, still a story I really like, but I have no idea how you would make a t-shirt for it, is the whole idea of aliens conquer the Earth. Very thematic from last week's episode. But they do it using our own legal code. They come in and they say, we're here to conquer you, but we're going to take you to court and prove that we deserve to have this land because by whatever your laws actually say, by precedential law, that's how it works on Earth.
Yeah.
So you get to go vote on the Google form and let us know which one you would most like a t-shirt.
Which of those you want. And for food heists this week, we have what I feel is another fairly unbalanced one. On the one hand, we have the food heist that made me a food heist guy.
Yep.
The Great Maple Syrup Heist. The OG,
an excellent food heist.
Yeah.
Right there. It's just a perfectly aged.
Just thousands, if not tens of thousands of gallons of maple syrup stolen out from under the noses of security guards in a warehouse over a course of days or weeks. Just a flawless, wonderful heist story. On the other hand, we do have very polite German asparagus thieves who stole asparagus in such a way that the field could be properly replanted with asparagus the following season.
This is the groundskeeper story as well, was kind of mixed into this, right?
I think we connected this to the groundskeeper.
Yeah, we connected. That's right. It wasn't
the original. Not the origin of the groundskeeper.
You're right. We connected this. But, I mean, that would make a good t-shirt.
It wouldn't make a terrible one.
No, it's maybe not as exciting a food heist, but it would make a good t-shirt. So I think these are both defensible votes. We're getting to the territory where upsets could start happening.
Yes.
We don't actually have the results. I said last week we're going to talk about results, but we're actually recording this episode right after last week's episode. And the way we're doing it, we want to give people plenty of time to vote. So the brackets, the first bracket has only been live for a week at this point, and we kind of wanted to make sure people had plenty of time to vote. And so next time we will start talking, but I am going to announce on the weekly updates the winners, and then we'll talk about them.
Nice.
Here.
Okay.
But Dan.
Yes, sir.
As you know,
as I am well aware,
I am one of the greatest moral philosophers of our time. Indeed, I am to moral philosophy what an expired lukewarm bottle of ketchup is to a great burger heist. Needs to be there.
Needs to be there.
If it's what you got, it's what you got.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what you have right now.
Okay.
Have you ever experienced one of these stories? This is one of the kind of quote-unquote bad story ideas that I've told myself that I've learned is it's really common to people. This idea of, what if I could go back in time to my body when I was a teenager
Okay.
and relive my life.
Yes.
I have all of my skills. We actually talked about this once on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So the question, the trolley problem today is, you have been sent, you wake up and you are in the body of your 14-year-old self. Everything is the same, and you are going to live the next 30 years plus again. Do you change things, or do you try to live it as close to your original life as possible?
Oh, man. That's hard.
Yep.
It's very hard. My answer whenever this type of question is posed, you can go back into your teenage self.
Mm-hmm.
Like, first of all, the question is, do you start playing stock market?
Mm-hmm.
If I went back to 14 years old is 1991, I would invest in Apple.
Mm-hmm.
I
Can you as a 14-year-old?
I don't know.
I don't believe you can.
I would try to figure out how.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
But would
even
you
if
do
I
it?
had to wait another 5 years, I'd still
fine.
hit it before Apple got huge.
Would you do it? Would you do that?
Would I? That's the question. And then the other question is, I really love my wife.
Yes. Do you call Dawn?
Do I call her?
And
She is just at that point a violin student in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Yes.
Like,
do you like maybe Dawn got sent back as well?
No.
Do you find out and maybe jinx it by being this weird person calling, or do you, right? Like,
yeah,
that's
see,
the question.
It's hard. My gut reaction is avoid her.
Okay.
Until we meet in college.
Uh-huh.
I would try to do everything so that we could still meet and she would still fall in love with me.
Okay.
Right? Because I'm already in love with her.
Do you worry about becoming like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day? Do you remember the iteration where he and Andy McDowell like start to fall for each other, and then the new day starts, and he tries to do it again?
He's done the absolutely flawless first date, and it feels completely artificial and hollow.
And then he just starts to break down.
Yeah.
He just, like, do you...
See, that's what I worry would happen.
You worry that she would pick up on some creepy vibes from this guy who knows me too well.
Yeah. I don't know. But it might be that by the time I actually meet her.
Yeah.
I mean, we started dating when I was 21, almost 22. So that gives me 7 years to be a slightly different person than I am. I don't know. It's hard.
That is very hard.
I think I would definitely try to be rich.
Okay.
Even if I tried to just, I'm going to put all this, especially if what I was banking on was Apple.
Right.
That particular pie is not going to be ready to eat until like 2004 or 5 is really when the money would come in. So I wouldn't have to worry about ruining that early part.
Do you try to stop 9/11?
Ooh, man. I don't know. My gut instinct is to say Steve Rogers didn't do it when he went back in time.
We don't know.
Maybe
he has a different dimension. He went back in time. The only thing that doesn't quite work is he somehow got back to our dimension.
Yeah.
When he was old man. But my headcanon for their own rules has to be he is from a different dimension.
He's old Steve from a different dimension.
Young Steve went back in time.
Spoilers
for Infinity War Endgame. Goes back in time. He meets her. We see that scene. He's already in a different dimension. Yeah. By their rules of time travel, he's branched off. So when we meet old Steve Rogers, he has lived an entire life in a branching timeline and has managed to make technology to get back to his original timeline so that he can meet his friends one last time after. And in his timeline, he stopped 9/11. He absolutely did.
He absolutely did.
He, if there's anywhere in the Marvel multiverse you want to go to the timeline where Steve Rogers went back in time and he and Peggy Carter saved the world from every little problem.
So here's what I want. Now I want to tell the story of a guy who approaches the government in 1946 or
Yep.
47 or whatever, and he's like, hey, I am the most valuable person you have for the next 80 years.
Yep.
I know all of history. I know who all the bad guys are. I can tell you who all the Soviet spies are. We can catch Robert Hansen before anything happens. We can stop all of this stuff. But once we get to 23, I'm out. I got nothing else. Because it's not that I can see the future. It's just that I'm a time traveler. I don't know why. That is a very intriguing
I think that would
could
be a good book. But I feel like it's been done, like it's been talked about. I don't know if someone's written it before, but it is I've heard people talk about this idea. I think it's the thing that occurs to people. Anyway, my answer is I would go ahead and change things because I would assume I'm already in a branching dimension. The moment I'm aware of things that'll happen, that's like the me and my family and my life is in another dimension. I'm in a world where it is not actually my family and my life. That can be very close to them. But that to me instantly says I'm in string theory, alternate dimensions, which I don't think is actually the way it works, but that would convince me it was.
If that's how this is working, then there's definitely things to do. Like I could get my sister diagnosed with hemiplegic migraines long before it becomes a problem, et cetera, et cetera. Are you going to try to find Emily?
I would call her first thing.
First thing.
I would try to call her and find out. I'd say, hey, it's Brandon. And if she says, you went back too? Perfect. If she doesn't say, I'd be like, oh, sorry, wrong number. Right?
That's amazing.
Yep. I might then call you. I'd be like, did anyone I know get transported back in time, or am I by myself? That
is going to be a really compelling montage.
Yes.
Because 14-year-old you in 1980 trying to track us all down without the internet.
Yep.
That's going to be awesome.
Getting money for long distance phone calls.
Yeah. It's like, I really have to call, I think Utah.
Yep.
But I'm not sure.
Gotta find a Dan Wells. I don't know his parents' names, but when I know them, they live in like North Salt Lake-ish. No, they just live in Salt Lake. Your mom lives in Salt Lake.
We have lived in Salt Lake since I was 3.
But
okay, so back to this story idea. What really fascinates me is the government itself that has taken advantage of the time traveler for 78 years, and now they know that they're about to run into, this is when he came back in time, so we're about to hit our singularity.
Yeah.
How do we make our adjustment from we know everything to, shoot, we don't know anything
Would you do the government, or would it be more interesting as something like the Foundation from Foundation, where you go back in time, you manage to remember who wins the Super Bowl a couple years in a row, and you make yourself into a millionaire by like 15, and you found the Foundation, right? You grab your own, you start recruiting your own secret agents and things like this, and you are like, find people you can trust and prove it, and you're like, we are going to make this world better. If you guys haven't read Foundation, this is kind of the story of Foundation, except instead of time travel, it's a guy who is so good at science, he can see the future, basically. And
boy. The first person I would hire for my Foundation is some kind of hypnotist to help me draw out all the memories. I can't remember exactly what happens with thalidomide, but I know it's bad. Let's get all that out of there.
Yep.
And then we can deal with it. So.
Okay. Well, this one turned into a bad story idea out of a Brandon's trolley problem.
Yeah.
I think we would both then change the world.
Yeah,
I don't think we could help it.
I think so.
I would not try to live my life the best I could, the closest that I could. It would be real rough to go back to junior high.
Oh, my word. Just the thought of having to go through junior high and high school again is so tiring. Like, I know whether I want to change the world or not, I'm just not going to put up with the kid that picked on me all the time. Yeah. I'm going to probably get completely different grades on all my papers, there's no way, I think, to accurately reproduce your childhood as an adult.
So, what are we actually talking about today? This was
don't
my pitch.
remember.
You pitched last week, so I had to come up with
you were
going
to talk about, I remember what you're going to talk about.
fan theories.
Yeah.
Not
fan
just
theories.
fan theories about our works. I love this idea of fan theories. And it actually came about because you mentioned, we forgot to mention Signs last week as an alien invasion movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned you kind of hate Signs.
I don't really like Signs. I think that it is a skillfully made movie that goes nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And none of the payoffs work.
And I mentioned that I kind of like Signs.
Mm-hmm.
I consider it one of Shyamalan's good movies. And I told you, I'm like, but the fan theory makes it way better. And you're like, the fan theory? And I'm like,
fan theory? And then you told me the fan theory, and it's amazing, and I love it.
The fan theory being that the aliens aren't aliens, they are demons. That this is because there's a whole religious sub-theme to a man getting his faith back. He was a priest. Like, this is the whole thing. I guess he's a minister. But getting his faith returning, and the idea of water being their weakness as a holy water because of and the symbology, the symbolism of all the symbols, and at the end, the symbols and the light shining through them. It is like one step from being a really good movie about a thing they think is an alien invasion and then turns out to be a demonic invasion.
Yeah.
And then they
this is the first thing in 20 years that has made me want to go back and watch Signs.
Yes. But of course, it's not true. It's not like what he was intending.
Yeah.
But it's like so close that it could almost work. That's the sort of fan theory that I find
that
really
you
interesting.
Love.
I love this. This just it makes me excited.
This is cool. So I will say as we start this conversation that I am really kind of tired of fan theories that take children's shows and make them sad and tragic.
Okay.
You know, the idea that this beloved cartoon is actually just, this person's life flashing before their eyes as they die.
Okay.
Or, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that drive to endlessly make things as edgy as we can make them is tiresome.
I can agree with that. It was cool once or twice.
Yeah. The first couple of times we were like, oh, yeah, maybe that is true.
Do you have a favorite of these? Because I have several and a top tier favorite. I don't want to dominate the episode.
Nothing is jumping out at me, so go ahead and go for it.
All right. We're going to start at the top. My favorite fan theory is the Tommyverse. I have told you about the Tommyverse before. You may have blocked it out.
Okay.
So there is a kind of...
Is this the General Hospital
the
snow globe
Saint
thing?
Elsewhere snow globe.
St. Elsewhere snow globe.
So for those who don't know, there's this drama called St. Elsewhere about a hospital that happened in the 80s. Right? It was pretty popular. It was pretty serious, but it also was called Saint Elsewhere, and it almost kind of had this like feel to it. I saw a few episodes when I was young, so I'm not an expert in Saint Elsewhere, but it just had this sort of, where is this? What is it about? And the ending of it was one of the characters in the show shows Saint Elsewhere, the hospital. It zooms out, and the ending of the entire show shows him holding a snow globe with St. Elsewhere in it.
The hospital.
And the strong implication of the way it's filmed and things is that this boy was imagining these stories because it's not a real hospital, and that this was all kind of his story, and he inserted himself into the story.
Yeah.
And he was neurodivergent, and so it kind of leaned into this idea of someone who is neurodivergent kind of processing the world this way.
This is an incredibly popular theory, an old theory. There are websites and even published books dedicated to it.
Yes.
Connecting many, if not most, of the media that we watch.
Yep. Yeah, it's great because there are people in Saint Elsewhere. It was a popular enough show that a lot of the characters went on to do actual character cameos in other shows. Where not just the actors, it's not the actor goes in a different show, but the character who's in Saint Elsewhere does a guest episode. This is very common in kind of soap opera style dramas, still rather popular in any kind of sitcom or things like this. And because the show ran long enough, had enough people in it, playing these characters, those characters going and playing, or those actors playing those same characters in their shows, implies that that show is also imagined by Tommy.
Yes.
From Saint Elsewhere.
And is part of the same connected universe.
And some of these are pretty tenuous. Some of them are not. But from this, you can get to almost everything. And following the trails of these is great because all of like Firefly and Joss Whedon stuff gets into it. One of the big networks is Homicide: Life on the Street. A character from St. Elsewhere,
Richard Belzer, right?
Is in Homicide, and that show was famous for its cameos of other characters from other. And because of that, you can get all sorts of places. And because Ridley Scott and some of these people like to put the same fake companies into their movies. This is where it gets a little more tenuous. Granted, it's all tenuous, but they all like to like he likes to use these same fake companies, and other people like to put them as cameos into theirs. And when you have this corporation get mentioned,
was Weyland-Yutani
Yeah.
is the big corporation in Aliens.
Yes.
And that's part of the Tommyverse.
That's
somehow,
part of
right?
So other shows have mentioned Weyland-Yutani, which then makes that part of it, which then you can get from that to, for instance, there are lots of cameos in science fiction shows where it's like the Firefly ship isn't just this big fleet. It'd be an Easter egg. But of course, if there's a Firefly class ship in this, then they're in the same universe. And Tommy's imagining this.
Yeah.
And but so you can go all the way over to things like Seinfeld and sitcoms, and I know, for instance, that Cheers and Frasier is in it, all the way over to all the big science fiction, Star Trek, and all of these, all imagined,
they're all connected
in the Tommyverse.
The same kid looking at the snow globe.
I
know Tarantino, for example, will always use his own fake burger
cigarette
company
brand
and cigarette brand, like Apple cigarettes or something. And that somehow connects back to it.
That's another one of the big crossover points is people like to throw those in because they love Quentin Tarantino and they like to use his little Easter eggs as nods to him. But then that, of course, enters those into the Tommyverse. And so that's my favorite giant fan theory because it's a lot of fun to watch the connections that people have made because it's mildly fun to imagine all these things existing in this one boy's mind, but it's legit fun to be like, oh, look at the Easter eggs that they have put into these shows. And look at the times this actor has played this character in this diverse set of different places and how they work in this same character and how interesting and fun that is to be able to play the same character who shows up in various different media and stuff like that.
A version of this that I just play with myself watching shows is I like to imagine that one actor's roles are just the same person everywhere.
That's the other big
which is
one.
Different, right?
It is, but it's a lot of fun.
Like Kobe Smulders, Robin from How I Met Your Mother is also somehow Maria Hill from the Avengers movies. Yeah. And then just coming up with my own weird headcanon of how that works is fun.
One of the big ones that people have done is the Schwarzenegger canon, where all the films are in one continuity. And that one works pretty well because there was somebody that the Terminators were based on. And so you can have that end up having been like, this guy, or it's like
your favorite movie, Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way, my favorite movie. It's based off of him. But there's a really cool fan theory of these where they try to connect all of the Schwarzenegger states. They're all in one continuity. That one doesn't work as well as my second favorite.
Okay, what's your second favorite?
My second favorite is the unified Pixar theory.
Ooh.
You familiar with this one?
I know that they put a lot of Easter eggs connecting the stories.
Yes.
I've read, getting back to my earlier complaint, I've read some fairly tortured explanations of why Andy's father died in a war or something ridiculous. But I assume what you're going to say is that all of the Pixar movies are
single continuity.
Single continuity.
And this one kind of is kind of works. It's fun because so many Pixar movies are about non-sentient objects becoming sapient, right?
Yeah.
Bugs, toys, and the connective tissue between the toys are these robotic things that have attained sentience to a post-apocalyptic world where cars live our lives long after we are gone because we left because we destroyed the planet. We went up with Wally into space.
Okay.
And like that sort of connective tissue is actually really kind of cool. And you can work in superheroes not too hard into this and talking ants and bugs into this whole idea.
Yeah.
There's a really great website that goes into the whole idea of the unified Pixar theory. And it's pretty good. It's probably the best of them.
So Toy Story, Bugs Life,
Yeah.
Monsters Inc. I can see those all connect very easily. Those are the three that are basically societies that are parallel to ours and parasitic on our world.
Yes.
Right?
Well, and your favorite movie, Ratatouille.
Ratatouille.
Is it direct that
that
evolution of Bugs' life
could
where
absolutely
animals
exist in
are
the same world.
obtaining sapience? We don't know it yet, and this is like first contact between a human and the animal world where they've started to obtain sapience. And I love the whole idea of humans went up with Wally, left behind a world of robots, and then we have cars.
And that's where cars come from.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I recently rewatched Wall-E.
Yeah.
And it's even better than it used to be.
Wall-E is amazing.
Wall-E is my favorite of the Pixar movies. And it just gets better every time I watch it.
It's the audaciousness of that opening with no dialogue is incredible that they pull that off. I mean, it's not absolutely no dialogue, I know, but
yeah. So much of it is even late into the movie, even once they get back to the people, there's very little dialogue in the movie. It is a mostly just pantomime movie.
I still cannot believe that you don't like Ratatouille.
I am astonished every time someone admits to liking it.
Come on. Anyway, all right.
It's better than Up.
Dan. Oh, Dan. Are you ready again for the vitriol and hatred? The good-natured vitriol and hatred because our fans tend to
feed on it.
Yes.
Everyone knows the first 10 minutes of Up is the best thing that Pixar's ever done. Not everyone will be big enough to admit that the rest of Up is terrible. But I will.
You're a very big man. You're very, very... All right, what about Darth Jar Jar?
Darth Jar Jar.
Darth Jar Jar has to come up.
I do feel like Revenge of the Sith kind of leaned into this a little bit. And I don't know if that's like him acknowledging internet fan theories or if it was already a part of it.
Darth Jar Jar existed until post episode 3. I want to say that Darth Jar Jar is like an early 2010s thing.
Is it? I can remember. Maybe I'm just thinking about people saying, "Oh, Jar Jar's got to be the one who destroys the Republic," and then he was the first one to vote.
Yeah,
maybe
it was
Palpatine.
around,
but he might not have been a Sith in that.
So for those
theory
who are unaware, there is a long-standing now, long in the tooth, and maybe you're tired of hearing about it, fan theory that Jar Jar was a Sith all along, and that he instrumented all of this. That he's like Darth Plagueis or whatever, and that he was playing a bumbling fool in order to get in among the Jedi and be able to mess things up. And they have some amusing but not very convincing evidence of this. This is one of the ones that's certainly more fun as a meme, whereas the Pixar one, I'm like, this could kind of work.
Yeah.
I like this idea.
Yeah. Huh. I hadn't heard that Pixar one. It makes me want to go back and
look up that one, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger one's not too bad. It's not too shabby. They have to work a lot harder to jam in some of these Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I don't know how they're going to get Conan in there.
Yeah, Conan's in there. I remember Conan being in there. It's like the idea is that Arnold Schwarzenegger is an immortal.
Okay.
And he's lived for all of this time and had all of these different experiences and lives, and doesn't change and things like that. And so he can have lived during the Sumerian, times prehistory of Earth
Yeah.
and has existed all the way up through the science fiction era of Earth. He's this immortal sort of Highlander-esque being.
Okay.
So,
That works.
um,
Dig it.
what do you think about when fans get so excited by a theory that the shows or movies do lean into them? Has that ever worked?
Has that ever worked?
Mhm.
I think it has. The one that leaps immediately to mind because I'm a nerd is League of Legends. The fans have been shipping two characters for a very long time.
Yeah.
Basically, well, it's from Arcane. Is one of the two pairings, Vi
right.
and Caitlyn.
Okay.
And that was, to some extent, a fan ship that got canonized in the show. Same with two other characters, Leona and Diana.
Okay.
Who, and they haven't canonized that one as officially, but they have more or less come out in some of their little lore videos and said, yep, they're in love with each other.
I suppose it's a little easier when you have 17,000 characters that you need to create lore for to be like, fans, you're latching onto this. Well, we'll run with it.
Then we'll give it to you, and that will make you happy. What are some other examples of people doing that?
I will tread lightly here.
Okay.
There are arguments about certain popular properties in which people think that because fans have figured out things that are happening in the series or because of the foreshadowing, that creators have changed and leaned against this to create dramatically different things going on in order to stay one step ahead of the fans.
Lean away from the fans.
Yep.
I have heard that theory proposed as one of the reasons that Game of Thrones went so wildly off the rails at its final season.
That is
the main reason, of course, is because they ran out of George Martin story to tell, and they started making it up themselves. And they're clearly good at adapting stuff, but not very good at coming up with their own stuff. But also, they were trying to be surprising and shocking, which means that all of the carefully seeded character arcs got thrown out the window.
And so I have like those models in my head when I think about things like this, and I'm like, no good can come of this. At the same time, but you pointed out some valid good examples. So I can see that it can happen, and I'm sure we've seen this happen in film and television before.
Yeah. Well, and really the examples we've been talking about, though, the ones that I mentioned that were good, like Vi and Caitlyn, that was creators leaning into fanon versus Game of Thrones creators leaning very far away from fanon in order to stay shocking. And that's where I feel like it falls apart more, is trying to be different, trying to be unexpected means that then stuff comes out of nowhere, and again, carefully crafted character arcs never pay off. Okay, so
we paused for a minute to let Dan look something up, and he ended up on the subreddit of fan theories.
Well, this is not actually the subreddit. This is a different website. This is thoughtcatalog.com. 32 bizarre fan theories that actually make sense.
All right.
I've only read the first 3 of these, so if some of them are boring.
Let's hear if some of these are good.
Okay, well, one of them is in the movie Inception, Leonardo's wedding ring is the totem rather than the spinning top being the totem.
Yes, I've heard that one.
I've heard this one a lot.
That's a good fan theory.
Yeah. That the top was Mal's, his wife's totem, and so he keeps it for sentimental reasons rather than actual save my brain reasons.
No, I like that theory. I read that very soon after the movie came out and thought that's cool.
Okay, this one is amazing. Tremors and Footloose take place in the same town. So Kevin Bacon is the same dude. But the reason that there was a ban on dancing was not just the Puritans attempting to control the kids. It was them saying, no,
there are
walk
monsters
without rhythm and you won't attract the worm.
Oh,
That's a wonderful theory.
oh, that's genius.
That's great.
Yeah, all the internet points to that person.
Yeah.
Who came up with that one. I love it.
And Kevin Bacon, he defied all the rules. He got the whole town dancing.
And
the
then
whole town was presumably destroyed,
got
which is
eaten
why
by
there's
monsters.
like 4 houses left.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that one, that's perfection. Okay. Donkey from Shrek is one of those kids from Pleasure Island in Pinocchio that got turned into a donkey. That's not bad.
That's not bad because Pinocchio is in Shrek, the character Pinocchio. And Shrek plays with this idea of fairy tales, which Pinocchio is. Not bad. I mean, a talking donkey doesn't quite fit a lot of the rest of the stuff that they do in Shrek, right? Like everything else is like from a legit actual fairy tale. That said, the donkey is from the kids' book, the original kids' book, whatever the original
Shrek is.
It's a weird old book, but donkey is in that.
Yeah.
So,
okay, here's one of these that's like, let's take a kids thing and make it edgy. In The Wizard of Oz, Glinda dropped the house on the Wicked Witch and blamed it on a tornado in order to gain control of Oz. Which, I don't know. Like, that whole genre of let's take Wizard of Oz and make it salacious.
Yeah.
It doesn't do it for me.
And also, guys, it's a stork. In the background, it's a stork. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, what are you talking about? The corpse?
The corpse. It's a stork. You can see it very clearly if you're not watching it on a tiny television in the 70s. So, what else we got here, Dan? Anything else real good?
Okay.
Yeah.
I love this one. I'm skipping a couple, I don't watch enough Office to know anything about the one it says about The Office. And I'm going to guess that you don't watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So
I've seen a few episodes. They're funny, but I have not watched enough of it.
This one says the reason that each It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode starts with a date and time is because they're all in the future testifying against each other in court.
That's genius.
That one actually is great.
That's legit genius. Yeah.
Okay, so here's a Back to the Future one, which I love.
So,
they filmed 2 and 3 back to back.
Yes.
Wrote them all, filmed them all, basically all at the same time, and then released them.
Yep.
Not even a year apart. I think it was just like 6 months. They establish in the second movie that you can't. Nobody calls me chicken.
Yes.
Which is weird. It kind of comes out of nowhere. It's not a part of the first movie at all. And then there's a huge payoff for it at the end of the third movie. And they clearly put that in as a way of giving him some kind of character arc.
Yep.
So the fan theory is that after changing his parents in the first movie, giving his father confidence, that altered their parenting style and changed the way Marty grew up and was raised to the point where he kind of had this, don't let anyone call you chicken.
Wow, that's really good.
That actually solves a major problem in the trilogy for me.
I am Zemeckis and someone says that to me, I say, yes, I'm canonizing
that's exactly
that right
what
now.
Happened.
No, I've done this before where someone comes to me with a really good idea and I'm like, that wasn't what I was thinking, but that is now true.
That is now true.
That is now true. This is now, that's honestly always bothered me.
Yeah.
About the trilogy.
Because it comes out of nowhere and it's so artificial.
Yep.
But now this makes it work.
Yeah.
And I love it.
It was like the worst part. I don't know. There's a few things in movie 2 that I'm just like, which one's your favorite?
Actually, 3 is my favorite.
3 is my favorite also.
I think 1 is almost a perfect movie script. But in terms of just sheer enjoyment and spectacle, I love the third one. Absolutely love it.
I really like not having to worry about incest. Just makes a movie experience more fun for me. Just as a general rule.
Yeah.
It's first one's a great movie. Don't get me wrong, but I love a good, fun time travel movie, and those tend to be that.
I recently watched the Back to the Future trilogy with my kids, and realized in his movie, he goes from 85 back to 55.
Yeah.
My daughter is 16 years old.
Uh-huh.
So right at the Marty McFly age. I think he was 17. If right now in 23, she were to have the same experience, she would go back to 93.
93.
Which is when I was 16.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Which, first of all, that's perverse. Like, there's
we've
no way
passed
that
this
we
by.
are so far in the future
No.
that 30 years ago is 1993.
No, I've made my peace with this long ago, Dan. We are older than Doc Brown.
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In those movies.
He was 46 when they filmed it.
Yeah. We are older than he was. Now, granted, he's playing a 65-year-old, which he can pull off in those movies.
Yeah.
So that they can go back 30 years and he can be 35. And he's a very old-looking 35 and a very young-looking 65, but not very young, just kind of mildly young. But so he can be the same actor. But if you look at Christopher Lloyd's age in those movies, we are older than him.
Yeah.
We are older than Patrick Stewart.
Yes.
Was when
in first few seasons.
We are
Next
older men than Patrick Stewart.
My word.
As Jean-Luc Picard, you are an older, grouchier old man than Patrick Stewart.
Movie studio comes to you, offers whatever money it takes, and you are now in charge of writing a script for a Back to the Future reboot where someone goes back from, let's go ahead and round up to 25 and goes back to 1995.
1995. Okay.
How do you tell that story?
I think that will work, right? Because you've got all sorts of what you don't want to do, and what you want to lean into the culture shock, not the stupid millennials can't live without their phones because none of us can live without our phones, right? Like throw that out the window.
I think that's the low hanging fruit, and that's absolutely the wrong way to do it.
No.
And that is our gut instinct when we look back at the past.
Yeah.
But Back to the Future was not about him going into the past and being an idiot.
No.
He was amazing, and everyone loved him.
Yes.
And we would have to, I think, do that same thing.
That's one of the things that makes that movie special, is that idea. And I would want to lean into that idea instead. It's like, what makes this person amazing who can go back in time and things like that. And, Back to the Future is also not about using the time travel to make lots of money, or at least it is, but that's the bad example.
The second movie is.
That's not what Back to the Future's for. That's not what you're there to fix your relationship with your family, darn it, and you better figure out how to do that because that's what we're doing. So maybe you do, like, the first instinct is do reversal, right? My family is too successful. It's driven us apart. And we're going back in time to become closer, like, my dad's a too famous science fiction fantasy author. We're going to go back in time and turn him into a jock.
Ruin his career.
But it's got to be accidental, the same way. I don't know. That's the thing. Like, do we need a Back to the Future?
Oh, we absolutely don't. And I think it would be terrible.
Yeah.
One of the reasons this question is interesting to me is I think the difference in generation between 85 and 55 was incredibly stark.
Yeah.
And I don't see that difference between 25 and 95
I think
as much.
Going to be even more different, or even less so going forward. Like, so for instance, you jump back to 95, you're listening to grunge. I mean,
which still gets played on the radio.
Gets played, not just played on the radio. Like when Back to the Future played, and I went to it, and they're playing like Mr. Sandman stuff. I'm like, oh, all that cute music that's in commercials, right? But my kids hear Metallica, and they're like, oh yeah, I know this song. The song's awesome. Like that wasn't my response to the 50s music in the 80s.
Yeah,
and we've talked about this idea before that music, how generations listen to music is changing a lot. Like with our kids. And so what kind of culture shock can you do that would be interesting? 95 is good because it's pre-World Wide Web. Maybe 94 you have to go to get, like, the World Wide Web's
there isn't
95.
really an internet. It's there.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm losing my voice.
I think 95 is when the web was first www, somewhere right around
Yeah,
there.
it's right around there. So it
Mhm.
exists, but it isn't useful in the
But by
same
like
extent.
97, we all live on the internet. Like in 2 years or 3
Yeah.
years, where it's like, maybe it's like 99. But in a
Mhm.
very short time, we all suddenly live on the internet.
Yeah. Like by 96, I know that I was using the internet, had an email address and everything, but I didn't in 95.
By 99, you had a website.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I don't know. I'd have to give thought to that one. What would you do? Do you have any thoughts?
I don't. I've mostly thought about, like you just discussed, all the ways to do it wrong.
To do it wrong.
Because I think that the obvious answers are all the wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
If it's someone who goes back in time and they can't figure out a rotary phone,
that's dumb.
that's dumb.
Yeah.
That's not what he does. I mean, there's
Yeah.
little bits of culture, like when he walks in and he orders a tab.
Yeah.
I mean, and even that's a joke that doesn't even make sense now. I had to explain it to my kids. There used to be a soda called Tab, and also you used to call a check a tab. But yeah, I don't know how I'd do it, but I think that it's the reason that question interests me is because I don't think it would be as hard to fit in 95 as it was for him to fit in 55. But
Yeah.
anyway, we've
I
talked
think
a lot.
That's getting even more so. I think that like we'll see, but 2030 back to 2005, I think we're going to see even less of that.
Okay, so one more. We'll end on this one.
We'll end on this, okay.
Because this is actually a fan theory that I've heard before, and I love it.
Okay.
That the Jetsons and the Flintstones take place at the same time.
Oh, same time.
The same time.
Same
that
time.
Earth has been ruined somehow, environmentally destroyed, and that all of these poor people are living down in this dystopian future, the have-nots, with mutants. We've recreated dinosaurs, repopulated the Earth with them. They're doing their best to survive. Whereas the haves, the 1%, the whoever it is, lives up in incredible
Spaceland.
future cities in the clouds.
Man, you could write a really great movie. Like, if you wanted to reboot those, yeah.
Reboot both of those?
Yes, at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's legit
I love that theory.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot of fun. It helps explain why, the cavemen had TVs and stuff, because they were recreating things that they remembered from when they had civilization. But anyway.
How's that, Ben?